Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on Jamesway's Webinar Wednesdays. Your control panel, I think we have some new users this week, so your control panel is in the upper left corner. There's a raise hand button there. There's an audio video button if you're having any issues with those settings. And then there is chat, which you can use to chat or communicate issues to the panelists here and also to our moderator, Krista. And then there's also a Q&A button, and the Q&A button is where I'd like you to enter any questions that you have. You can enter them at any time, and we will address them right here live on the air. So just take a second and make sure that you find those buttons so that you're ready to go, because we're looking forward to all your questions. This week, the topic is tips for improving and making your installations go smoothly, your machine installations and your HVAC installations. And to discuss that topic, I am joined this week by Steve Dittner. He is our Director of Global Services here at Jamesway, and he's my boss, so that's fun. And he's been with Jamesway actually for 18 years. He started out scheduling in our production group. So he's a wealth of knowledge on machines and part numbers and things like that, and was a project manager for a while in the service group, and now is our Director of Global Services. So glad to have you on today, Steve.
Thanks for having me. So once again, thanks everyone for joining us. And I put this presentation together just as some tips and tricks that we've learned over the past couple of years associated with making installations smoother. Things that we've pulled together from interactions with customers and interaction with colleagues here. And hopefully this information will be helpful, and perhaps you can learn something, and perhaps we'll learn something too if there's some good interactive questions. So let's get started. And these topics here are in no particular order. They're just assembled from our experiences, and anytime there's a question, feel free to type them in. So first of all, let's want to talk about the construction schedule. So if we're thinking about machines that are being taken out of an existing room and the room being repaired and new machines being put in, if there is a new expansion onto an existing building, or if there is a brand new facility being built, something that is helpful to Jamesway is that we can have a copy of the construction schedule. That way it gives us an opportunity to view what the expectations are from the perspective, not only from the general contractor, but also from the customer. It gives us perspective as to how much time has been given by the customer and the contractor for us to achieve our objectives. And it can become a talking point if the time given is too short or too long. The construction schedule also gives us an opportunity to reach out to other trades. So with pre-construction meetings and even meetings on site during installation, Jamesway should be included and invited to those meetings. It gives us an opportunity to meet with trades, every trade involved in the project. We can share information with the trades about our machines, about our specifications and our needs, and it'll help the project go much, much smoother. Also, if there's an installation plan available, what we mean when we say installation plan, if there is a need to install, for example, hatchers before incubators, if there's a need to start in a certain room in a certain corner, any type of need that the customer wants to share with Jamesway in terms of how to approach the installation, the earlier we get that, the better. We can take many of those needs and discuss them with the customers, and there's opportunity to have those needs incorporated into the production schedule as well. If there's no communicated installation plan, we'll make our plan will be to ship and produce incubators first and hatchers second. but there's opportunities through conversations to influence that plan and have certain quantities of machines built first in certain orders. There's lots of influences that we can place on production and gain from the customers in terms of installation and construction.
For sure. And I think one feedback that I think I've had on a lot of sites is that the general contractor, manages all the sub-trades, but the customer is the one who's speaking to Jamesway. So often when that link isn't there, the subcontractors, they don't know when we need things. They don't know, to be careful around our machines as they're being put up. And that causes a lot of, conflicts or interruptions on site. And so it's really important that, not only do we speak to you, the customer, but that we speak to the general contractor, yes, and any sub-trades that may have questions directly to ask us.
Yeah, the more communication, the better. That way we can resolve any issues and prevent issues from happening. Further to Tori's point, single point of contact. So generally when a project is signed, someone from the installation or service team will reach out to the customer to open a dialogue and start exchanging information about construction schedules, installation plans, needs on site, shipping details. So that can be, yes, with the customer representative, and there's also opportunities to share contact information with general contractors or different trades as well. So not only is Jamesway looking for a single point of contact out in the field, the customers also need a single point of contact in here in the office. Those single points of contact help reduce unnecessary communication or contact points. We can attempt to filter or funnel information through one person here in the office. And that also can be applied to the installation, Jamesway's installation supervisor on site. We can introduce them to the customer, to the contractor at certain points to build that strong relationship, because there's a lot of questions that we can address early on in the process before the machines are even shipped. But once the machines arrive on site, there's always more questions, and getting the contractors and the customer talking and interacting with our representative on site just is a great opportunity for information sharing. It can smooth out those potential bumps along the road.
Exactly.
So now we have goods on site. We have installations ready to take place. We're talking about room temperature. So in some climates, it's not an issue. Around here in Canada and certain northern climates, room temperature is key. We need to have the components climatized at room temperature inside the building. Particularly if there's going to be silicone involved, we want the silicone to be applied and curing in the appropriate temperature between 65 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. We want to have, when the goods arrive, we want to have the building in such a way that it's the envelope is closed, the roof is on, the walls are up, and if it's winter conditions, that there's a permanent heat source there. That way the working conditions are not only comfortable, but the components are going to be usable in a good fashion as well.
Exactly.
For incubator rack assembly, this is can be a very large part of a project. Many projects order anywhere from 20 to hundreds or thousands of racks. So it's a very important part of this process, and there's some key things to remember or plan for your rack assembly process. So a rule of thumb that we generally use is if you have 2 people assembling racks, you can expect them to do about 4 to 5 racks per day. And there's some assumptions that we make when we say 4 to 5 racks per day. We assume that the people doing this rack assembly process, that they're mechanically inclined, that they are familiar with tools, and that they're comfortable using these tools. Jamesway does provide to customers paper instructions, work instructions how to assemble racks. We have recommended tool guides that should be used by customers when assembling the racks. And also we recommend, I'm sure many customers have seen our incubator racks. They take up a lot of space once they are assembled. They not only take up a lot of space once they arrive, but once they're assembled, they do take up a lot of space. So it's important for customers to have a space set aside either at the hatchery for these assembly processes, or perhaps off-site at a rented space. But if you're ordering, 1,000 racks, we're talking a few thousand square feet of storage space and working space needed to execute this function. And then, we recommend 2 people as the minimum, but that'll have to be scaled up in terms of if a customer is ordering, hundreds of racks. It is not uncommon to see teams of 6 to 8 to 10 people dedicated to building racks in kind of like an assembly line fashion. Different people assigned to different tasks, from egg tray frame assembly to testing to the rack assembly itself and sub-assembly. So it's a key feature or key function, and critical in that these racks are expected to last 15, 20 plus years. So we want them to be assembled in a quality fashion and all to be tested, and that we ensure that there's no issues once they're being used in the machine and going forward. So machine assembly, another critical aspect of smooth and worry-free installations. Machine assembly can be the longest amount of time in projects in terms of Jamesway for assembling components. It's a lot of different things here are important to remember, for not only for Jamesway to communicate, but for customers to think about as well as they're approaching their assembly or installation time. If at all possible, it's really important to include current or future maintenance staff in this process. It gives them an opportunity to touch the parts, be involved in the process, and see how the machine went together. They'll get a greater understanding for any future repair or maintenance needs, and also will give them, I think, pride in ownership that they were involved in the assembly of these machines. It's not unreasonable to think these machines are going to be standing for 20 to 30 years. So we want, it's important to have the maintenance staff involved. So once again, to improve and contribute to a quality installation. If a customer is bringing in maintenance staff, that's great. It gives us the comfort and the customer the comfort that these people are already mechanically inclined. That isn't always the case, and we appreciate that. In our experience, we have seen customers use hatchery staff. Sometimes the general contractor provides the staff, or perhaps a third party. So there's many options to provide the labor for the installation. Jamesway generally provides one installation supervisor. They are there to do many things. They're there to train. They're there to coach and guide the helpers during this installation, but we can't do it alone. That's why the customer provides the larger quantity of labor to make the work go quicker. So maintenance staff, mechanically inclined people are the best opportunities. And we recommend, if, say, maintenance staff are involved or hatchery staff, that they get excused from their typical duties. That way they can be allowed to focus for the full day on the task at hand. It can be challenging if the staff or helpers are pulled away to do other tasks. It can interrupt the momentum of the installation. It can slow tasks down. So if at all possible, we really recommend that these folks are excluded from the regular tasks. In terms of day-to-day activities and skill and ability, we recommend that the customers or the staff can lift about 50 pounds. Once again, be mechanically inclined, good with tools, something even as simple as can read a tape measure. things like that can be overlooked in terms of what Jamesway needs, but really encourage the stronger and more qualified people. It leads to a better quality installation. A lot of customers ask how many people should be provided. It depends on the quantity of machines. If it's 5 machines versus 50, that can be scaled in terms of quantity of help. Generally, we recommend a minimum of 2 people working with our supervisor for smaller installations, but 3 to 4 is optimal. If we're talking about, we're crossing the 50, 60, or 80 machine mark, scaling up to 6, 7, 8 helpers is beneficial. Then people can be broken up into teams and tasks and be tackled concurrently instead of consecutively.
Right. And on these bigger installs, there's a lot of grouting to do. There's a lot of caulking to do as well. Do you recommend that they find a laborer or laborers specialized in these things?
That would be ideal. Some of those tasks they have a certain knack, they take a knack to them, and we want those functions to look really good. Silicone is visual, it's in the customer's face once it's done. The mud takes a certain skill, so if there's certain people that are showing that they're good at this and they're skilled, we recommend that they're set aside and put on those functions going forward. Some of the cosmetic work is really important and is going to be visible to customers for years to come. So we want it to be to look good and to be work that everyone's proud of.
Exactly.
So for tools, generally speaking, Jamesway's installation supervisors bring a lot of their own tools, anything from laser level to hand drills to taps, a lot of Pelican cases, a lot of things that they fly with. And that's because a lot of things they use are smaller and they can travel with pretty easily. Some of the questions we receive from customers are, what kind of tool should we have ready for our people or the staff once installation begins? And some things that we can't carry with us that are always recommended are things like ladders. Large tools like that. Sometimes customers provide hammer drills. If the customers have a well-stocked maintenance department, we encourage the customers that if they're expecting 3, 4, or 5 people, that we have the appropriate amount of tools to match the quantity of help. That way we don't have to rush out and buy something on day one. We don't have to really share too many tools. Each person can have their own set of tools and not be interrupted in those manners. Trolleys and carts are important. Once the first day or two can be spent on organizing the site in terms of separating parts, opening up boxes, getting things sit on work tables. A lot of customers and a lot of installers build simple work benches. We do provide a lot of lumber when we're shipping components and machines, so a lot of that lumber is repurposed and built into workbenches and trolleys. That way things can be organized. And other tools that a lot of customers provide, and we ask for extension cords, extra lighting, things of that nature, just to make the startup quick and easy, and we can get down to business as quick as possible. Storage and staging. So this one is an interesting topic because a lot of things have come up over the years in terms of how our product arrives and what's the best way to receive it and store it in a space if the site isn't quite ready. So the critical thing is to remember that Jamesway's machines are shipped in skids or crates, and it's quite large. We can have, with the consoles and ECUs are extending over 80 inches in length. The rack packs are about 1,000 pounds, and door packs are large. So we have a lot of large products, which we load here with lift trucks. And it's important to keep in mind when receiving product at the site to use a company lift truck or perhaps rent a lift truck so the goods can be taken off safely and easily. We also recommend, if possible, to use fork extensions, and what those are for the long products like a console or an ECU or even some long panel packs. Well, what the shippers use here is they put literally 6-foot fork extensions on their lift truck to help balance out the product when they're lifting it, or the crates are lifting them here. Prevents tipping. So if at all possible, we recommend using fork extensions at the site to safely take product off the trucks. If there is an opportunity where, or the issue comes up where product has to be stored, it's important that the product is stored outside or away from weather elements. So indoor storage is preferred. Once again, climate control is preferred because we have boxes and crates that contain the thin pave and the silicone. We don't want it to be frozen at any time. It'll compromise its function. Also, with our product is transported every day in trucks and containers, it's really important to take photographs and report back either to your installer who's on the site or head office here if there's damage when the goods are arrived. Things can shift in transit on the road or on the water, so things can shift and be damaged. So it's important that we get photos and part numbers if possible, so we can replace these goods immediately. For staging space, staging's a bit different than storage. We're thinking about storage in terms of the building where the site isn't quite ready, and it's going to be perhaps stored there for maybe weeks or longer. Staging is different in that wherever the bank of incubators or hatcheries is going to be in, it's preferable if there's a staging space that our installer can have crates or boxes, have a space prepped that they can draw from that's close to the workspace, if at all possible, in the same room, perhaps in a corner or somewhere segregated. It just makes for less travel, less point-to-point travel. It can be challenging if the staging space is on the other side of the building. That just sometimes you have to work with the building layout, but if at all possible, a staging space near the bank is preferred.
To add to that, if you are receiving HVAC equipment from Jamesway in terms of rooftops and chillers, that sort of stuff can be stored outside, but it needs to be stored on level ground, preferably pad, not out in the grass or in unlevel areas, because what we have seen in the past is that storage in these sort of areas, some damage has occurred to the equipment. So keep that in mind as well.
Workspace. So if we think about, we have goods received into the hatchery, into the building itself. Crates have been opened, boxes have been opened, things are set up. Now we're thinking about working in the space, preparing the first machine, working on the banks. It's important to have the space itself well lit, preferably with permanent power. You want to be able to see what we're doing, have enough light there that not having to extend cords with battery operated lights or trouble lights, and overhead light is preferred. Also, a workspace that is clean, has been prepped. We'll come in a minute to the floor spec, but an open, clean workspace that is ready to go from day one is really important. We've arrived at sites, unfortunately, sometimes when the space isn't quite empty, so we have to take a couple days to help prep it, which unfortunately can slow things down, but just having an open space, clean and ready, is ideal. So this may be a bit difficult to see, but this is the Jamesway flooring specification. It's something that we communicate early on in a project to, if we're able to communicate directly with the general contractor or a certain trade, or at minimum pass it on to the customer themselves, that these are the flooring requirements that Jamesway needs for our machines in terms of slope. We want to have a small slope, but not to the point where we're compromising machine function. We don't want to have the gap at the front of the machine too large that the floor sweeps can't make an appropriate seal when the doors are closed. So this type of information is critical in the beginning of a project to be shared by Jamesway to a customer, or it can be shared to the general contractor, shared during a construction meeting, those types of details. It's something that Victoria's developed and is a critical piece of information that can help prevent some issues down the road if we get that shared to the appropriate people. So services for Jamesway machines, for our HVAC equipment, it's important and preferred. We know it's not always possible, but we do promote as preferred if permanent power, hot and cold water, and compressed air are ready for us when we arrive on site. Once again, we appreciate it. It can be a challenge to get those services coordinated. A lot of those services are being worked on while we're on site as well, doing our installation. But the main thing for us from day one is really permanent power, minimize extension cords, and have power sources that we can use, from battery charging to lighting. And we provide information about services we require early on in the installation process or discussion process in terms of our machine specifications. But those are the critical things that our machines need to operate. And if they can be timed out by the customer or the contractor to be complete before we're done, it's even better. That way our machines can have the functional test while our supervisor is on site and wrapping up his details. That concludes the tips for a smooth installation. Hopefully that was helpful in terms of details that we've learned with customer interactions over the years. There's always lots more to learn during installations. Each installation we found is different. No two are unique. We try and provide information up front that can be helpful for the customer and the contractors, help them do their piece of the project. And each installation we're learning things as well. So hopefully it sparks a good conversation amongst yourself and some good questions here this